Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I'm also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I want to talk about stages, how an avoidant falls in love, and kind of why it can come across kind of backwards. So, avoidants do fall in love or they show their love a little backwards. They don't fall in love backwards, but it kind of looks like that. And so, it's probably just the way I'm going to word this. Because what happens is these three stages, the first stage seems like everything's going well. And we're going to talk about each of the stages, by the way. The second stage is the most confusing stage where people give up or they get scared. And that's when a lot of them kind of move away from their avoidant partner and they almost feel like the relationship is over. And then the third stage is actually the stage where you start realizing, okay, this relationship is working out. I have to compromise, they have to compromise. But the second stage is the one that throws you off because it really does look like things have went all the way backwards. And it's very confusing. But that second stage is probably the most important stage of this entire process. Okay. And so we're going to talk about it. So what are these stages? So this is just the stages that I marked as, all the cases that I've seen, all the people I've worked with. This is how I organize it. And so usually when I see you guys, I'm able to kind of figure out really quickly in all of our calls where you're at and then what to do next, how to get to the next stage. That's always my goal with you guys. How do I get you to more commitment? Or if the relationship is struggling and you're asking me in our call, I don't think I want to do this anymore, how you can manage that and move away from that relationship or figure out what direction you are. But that's the way I think. And so that's why it's broken up like this. So I hope that makes sense. The first stage is you will know if you're in the stage if they have curiosity about you. If you're actually not even that into it, but they might be, sometimes that's the case as well. You show up with your most authentic version. You show up emotionally stable. So this is what you look like to them. They're curious, you're authentic, you're emotionally stable, and they love those things. You're probably a little bit warm, you're a little bit caring, because a lot of you guys are, and that's what avoidants love, right? The more emotional, caring, empathetic person. They love people like that, okay? That's usually the person they commit to. And you show up like that. How they typically show up is they might be a little guarded, but you might not tell. They might be a little mysterious. They might be pretty independent, but they're really interesting. They are mysterious, but in a good way. It's not too much. They might come across really confident because they are. And they seem almost secure, but it's actually you're mixing up the secure with the self-assured. They're not secure attachment, but they're secure in themselves. That what they're not secure about is relationships. But you guys aren't in a relationship yet, or it's a very slow relationship. And so you don't see their insecure traits. And so a lot of people get really confused and think this person's really secure. And you might actually think they have secure attachment. They don't. They're secure in themselves. With anxious people, they're less secure in themselves. And so it's pretty obvious to tell who is a person who has anxious attachment right away. But with avoidance, especially dismissive avoidance, it's harder to tell. I can tell, but a lot of you guys can't, because people who are secure attachment, they come across a lot more warm. I don't even know how to explain it. They come across more warm in the first stage than avoidants do. Avoidants are a lot more about themselves, their work, the logistics of their life, and they're usually a little bit detached, but in a confident way. And so that's what kind of draws you in. That's what makes you attracted to them. And then you guys start bonding and getting connected, and they open up to you, you open up to them, and they start falling in love at this stage. And you might even fall in love too. But usually they start feeling it right here. And that is where the second stage comes in, okay? So usually, a marker of the second stage is that you reveal more about themselves, they reveal more about themselves, you show up with vulnerability, and they show up with vulnerability, but they start pulling away. That's when you know you're in the second stage. And the second stage can last for a very long time. It shouldn't, but it does. This is a stage where you're like, okay, this person is clearly an avoidant. That's right when you know. So typically, if you're in a rebound relationship, you don't get to the second stage. You get stuck in the first stage, and then they either leave or they unfortunately do something. Maybe they're talking to their ex. They're usually stuck in that first stage, and you might see little trickles of the second stage. But the person who the avoidant is most attached to, the person that they love, they see the second stage right so much to the point where they almost are like, what happened? This is a different person than the person they were in the first stage, okay? That's why I say this is backwards. They almost act disinterested in you in the second stage, whereas in the first stage, they acted like everything was fine. So this is a stage that I had mentioned is the most important. So I'm going to tell you what to do in this stage. And then we're going to talk about the third stage, because the third stage is the stage where I want you guys to get to, but it's hard. Okay. So in this second stage, I'm not saying to not be vulnerable. I want you to stay vulnerable a little bit, because once you get to the tail end of this stage, I'm going to tell you what to do. But first, in the second stage, you need to have some expectations, and you want them to be clear. I'm not saying you have to have a timeline, but you need to have something clear. A lot of times people who are, have a call with me or my email service, I sometimes give you like an actual prompt, like what to say. I give you a couple versions of it as well. But normally the main structure of the things that I tell you to say is some form of a clear expectation. Whatever version you pick, that's up to you. But there is a very important reason to this. Emotions are very high in this second stage. Avoidants are falling in love to the point where it's overwhelming. But emotions they don't feel good. For you, they feel great because you trust emotions. In fact, anxious people, their emotions helped them to navigate a very difficult time in their life. Anxious individuals, when they're younger, having their emotions, having that outburst, for children, an outburst is not a bad thing, by the way. People use that as a bad thing, but it is a clinical term. We call it a tantrum, clinical term, okay? That child may have not literally been fed unless they cried. And then the father might be like, oh, let me go feed my kid. Anxious attachment and even fearful avoidant attachment can form like that. So actually, they were taught, my emotions are all I have left. When they were feeling that abandonment from their parents, their emotions taught them that. Their emotions taught them, okay, I knew that I was getting abandoned. This is how I prepare. This is how I show up because I felt it, right? Anxious people, they trust their emotions really well. It's actually all they really can trust. And so they lean into that really well. A very good characteristic about anxious attached people, okay? Very good characteristic. Avoidants have the other way around. When they feel those emotions, they think, oh, this is a bad feeling. This is when they were reprimanded, when they were told this is not what you're supposed to do. Do not show emotions. And it's indirect, but it's also direct. Some avoidants, such as myself, we were taught literally directly instructions, don't show emotions. I mean, my dad would, to this day, still says, whatever you do, never show your emotions. Don't show your emotions to anybody, always, right? And so we were actually taught directly, and I'm healing now, but I remember that very clearly. So it's very different. So the second stage feels overwhelming for avoidants. They're in love with you, and that's an emotion, it's an action, it's an expectation, not even that you did it. They feel that way. And so why are those clear expectations really important? Because throughout all the emotions, all the tanglement that they're feeling, something that they do recognize is here. Clear communications. Don't do this, do that. Just like how their parents talk to them. So whatever you just said, I would prefer you text me. Don't text me, late at night. Always text me during working hours, because that makes me feel comfortable and that makes me feel like you respect me. Let's say that was what you said. Clear expectations. Please don't text me after midnight. If you want to hang out with me, tell me prior. You said that very clearly to them. That registers much easier, and it helps them to not be so overwhelmed with the emotions. The next one is you want to show flexibility with compromising on your side. We're still in stage 2, okay? Flexibility. I don't mind if you don't show up during our date. All that I ask is that you tell me before you cancel and that you reschedule. I'm flexible. I know sometimes you can't always make it. I know you're busy. I know sometimes you can get overwhelmed. All that I want is flexibility, okay? All I want is for you to be open. That's what you're telling them, okay? And the next one is you admit your mistakes and you want to work on it. I was a little bit overwhelming. Let's just say this is what you're saying. I was a little overwhelming yesterday. I appreciate that. I'm working on it. And I ask that you work on A, B, and C. Okay. So once you start doing that and they start calming down, that's when you know you're on the tail end of stage 2. And so this is usually what I suggest with you guys, but stage 3 is harder in some ways. Okay. So stage 3 is where they will start leaning into the relationship, but that means you kind of have to lean a little bit out, okay? Just a little bit. Focus on your life. You're still doing the things that you were doing in stage 2. Clear expectations, flexibility, and accepting your mistakes. But now you're adding some new things, okay? You're going to focus a little bit more on your life. You're going to remain consistent and reachable. You communicate your needs clearly. And now if the rapport is built, maybe you can add a little bit of a timeline, depending, okay? This is where you can start adding this stuff. You show appreciation. You focus on the positives more than negative, and you give direction of what you want. Direction is really important. I want you to do this. I want you to text me this on Valentine's Day. I want you to give me this on Valentine's Day. These are examples, and I know that's why I said this is hard. This is not the fun stage. It doesn't feel fun, but it's exactly what helps them to show up and open up and fall in love. And so once you get to this stage and you can go through the stage or past this stage, the relationship is a lot smoother, okay? And so to summarize, the first stage is usually when it seems like they are secure and you're falling in love and things are connected. The second stage is where you're comfortable with the love, they're pulling back, you start adjusting, and you start showing flexibility, clear expectations, compromise, admit your mistakes. And the third stage is when you step back a little bit, but you have a little bit stronger expectations, but you're very warm, appreciation, positivity, giving directions, but you're very clear. I would like you to do this. I don't like when you do that, A, B, and C. Very, very clear. And by doing this, avoidants can start being more comfortable with their love. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.